Welcome to the second assignment in my class. We have finished with the first assignment, which was to watch this video tutorial and follow along. This is, I believe, the creator of Audiotool is showing us how to navigate all that stuff. He went fast and showed us a lot of things. And now we're going to be start focusing on smaller slices of music production and arrangement. So the first thing that we want to do is make sure you're signed in. You'll see your own little avatar if you've signed one up here. Otherwise, just make sure and that your that your username shows up right here. So click on that and it will take you to your own studio page. This is important because when you turn in your assignment, you are going to grab the URL web address from up here. You're just going to highlight that and copy it. And that's what you're going to paste as a link into the assignment in Google Classroom. So yeah, when you're all done, you'll want to have this here. So this is a good place to be for right now. It's going to show your tracks here. These are the published tracks. When you're finished with an assignment, it will you'll publish it so it becomes visible to everyone else. And this is where I will come and see it. Your drafts will show you the unfinished projects that you have not yet made public. So just know that that's where things are going to be. Let's enter the studio right there. And once this finishes loading, the first thing that we're going to want to do at that point is give this a name. Seeing that this is assignment number 2, we're going to name it assignment number 2. I love waiting for the internet to work. This is the best thing ever. Hopefully yours is loading faster than mine. I should probably go back and cut this part out. I'm a little worried about this now. I'm going to reload this page. All right, so we are starting a new project. And let's close that. So the first thing that I want to do with this is go up to the project menu right here and notice how it has a save function. We're just going to do that. And we're going to give it a name right now. We're going to call this assignment 2. And that should be good. Notice that it says allow others to remix. Make sure that's checked because that's what's going to allow me to come inside your assignment and actually have a look at it. If it's not checked, then when you turn this in to me, it will not count as work turned in because I can't see what you did. So definitely make sure that allow others to remix is checked. So go ahead and save that. Now, once it's done there, if we go back to project, notice that it says autosave enabled. Because we already have given it a name and saved it the first time, it will just continue to save every move that we make as we go. You can undo by hitting Control-Z in this environment. So if you make a change that you don't want, it's automatically saved, but you can undo that by hitting the Control-Z. So we're in pretty good shape. Okay, so I'm going to just turn my master volume down so it doesn't destroy us when we listen. And here we go in to our actual production. So let's grab this machinist drum kit. And notice it's connected its wire already to channel number 1 in this mixer. So next thing we're going to need to do is grab some samples and load this up. So samples, first thing we need is a kick. There's a kick. Kick 10. This is going to be too loud also. So kick 10 sounds like this. There it is. I like that just fine. I'm going to drop that into the first slot in my sampler. Now we need a snare. And I think that I had decided on the snare 7. That sounds all right to me. Just going to drop that in the next slot. And a hat. And I decided that I want to use just a nice closed hi-hat sound. Hi-hat closed as opposed to hi-hat open. The hi-hat open sounds are going to be those long ringy kind of sounds. The hi-hat closed sounds are going to be really short. So I think we want to go with a shorter one. So hi-hat closed, number 4 was the one that I liked. Okay, so there we go. Now let's right-click on this guy and create a note track. And there's our note track for Machinist here that has popped up. So double-click in there to create a block, and I'm just going to slide that back to line up with the beginning. And double-click on that to get our keyboard roll, piano roll here. So the way that this sampler is going to work is it gives you space for 12 samples. Even less, maybe. Okay, so what is that? 9 samples. It's kind of a strange number. Those are going to be triggered by the notes on your piano here. So it doesn't matter which C note you play. That's going to play the sample in slot number 1. If I was to slide over to a different C, all the C notes play sample number 1. That's your kick drum. So that's going to go kick drum, snare drum, hi-hat. Those, because they're placed into those slots, are mapped to certain keys on the keyboard. And these are not the same keys that drums are generally mapped to. Usually you're going to see your kick drum is going to be on C, but C1, way super low down the keyboard. Not all the C's will trigger the kick drum, just C1. And then the D right above that will be your snare drum. And that's not at all what we've mapped these to. Just know that this is not a standard mapping for these sounds to be on the keyboard this way, but it works for us because we get to put whatever samples wherever we want here. This is custom. So, okay. Now we need to let's create a quarter note beat here. We're going to grab the viewfinder here, this thing that looks like a Nintendo Switch. If you just grab the right edge of it and slide it back, it's going to give us a smaller view area, which means that our block takes up a bigger space in that. Notice that when we're zoomed to something like this level, it shows us where each measure begins. There's measure 1, measure 2, measure 3. As we zoom in, it's going to not only show us smaller grid segments down here, but all of a sudden it's going to show us the divisions on the ruler above as well. So as you zoom in, all of a sudden it's going to show me measure number 1, beat 1, measure number 1, beat 2, measure number 1, beat 3. So we can see in the ruler where we are and which beats we're actually dealing with, which is important if we get really close. And so if we're looking at this, I've zoomed super far in. And what we've got is, this is measure number 1, beat 1, segment 1. Measure number 1, beat 1, segment 2 of beat 1. Segment 3 of beat 1, segment 4 of beat 1, and now we get to measure beat number 2 finally. So this line right here is where beat 2 starts in that measure. We're zoomed in too far to be useful to us at the moment. What I want to do is zoom out to the point where we can see just the beats themselves. Now notice it gives us the opportunity to still put in things that are smaller. And if we do, in fact, click in here, I'm just going to double click on something to insert a note. It puts the note, it's the size of the tiny segment that we want. And so I don't actually want that. So I'm just going to Control Z right there. So instead of the smart segments over here, the smart ruler, I'm going to just click on the word smart and I'm going to grab quarter notes instead. Now, when I click in here, it's going to give me the entire quarter note length that we're dealing with. So I actually want this to be my kick drum. Our basic drum beat is going to be kick drum on beat 1, snare drum on beat 2, kick drum on beat 3, and snare drum on beat 4. That's going to be the foundation for every drum beat you'll ever make. Now, I'm going to put a hi-hat on all 4 beats. Just double click that in there. And that is our drum beat. I hit spacebar to play. And spacebar to pause. So, that is pretty much that. I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. And I'm going to take this block and I'm going to hold control and click and drag this guy away, and it creates a clone of it. When I double click that, it shows me the notes that are inside of here. What we want to do this time is we're going to take this and we're going to still have kick, snare on beat 1, 2, 3, and 4, but let's move from a quarter note context to an eighth note context. So I'm going to come back over here to my snapping value, and I'm going to move to eighth notes. And then I'm going to I'm clicking and dragging, and I'm going to highlight all 4 of those hi-hat notes. Be careful not to get your kick in your snare drum, although it probably doesn't matter, but the hi-hats are what I'm after here. And I'm going to just grab the end of the note and pull it, click and drag, and it's going to shorten them all. Because I highlighted all of them at the same time, it'll perform that operation to all of them. So there you go. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did with the blocks up here. I'm going to hold control and click and drag, and it's going to duplicate them. See, now I've got clones of those notes, and I'm going to put them in there. So I'm going to click into the timeline ruler at the top, and it's going to move the playhead to where I am instead of wherever it might otherwise be, and hit play. So that is our eighth note beat. So over here, here's a quarter note beat. It's the kick and snare are the same. It's just the hi-hats that are going to give us divisions on the quarters or divisions in the eighth notes. Versus. Okay. Now, you saw we made some clones. I'm going to just set this to the bar because that's what we're going to do here. We made a clone of this by holding control and dragging it, and then we modified the clone of it. Right now we're going to do something completely different to that. I'm going to grab this one and move it all the way over to bar 5, and that's going to give me 4 measures of space before it. And I'm going to take that first block, and I'm going to find the end of it right here, and I'm going to drag it out sideways. Now, that is going to take, if I double click on this, notice that it's showing me a 1 measure pattern here, and there's my notes. If I try to look at measure number 2, it doesn't even let me select it, because this is not a this is not a clone of this. This is just a re-loop of this. It's taking this and doing it again. So this is not a separate entity than this. This is all one big repeating pattern now. If I want it to be altered in any way, I have to make an actual clone. I have to make a separate entity, and then I can modify that. Or I can just double click and make a new one. But so notice what happens when we play. We continue to get the same pattern there. So let's do that with our other drum beat as well. Run back to the beginning to make sure the whole thing plays. So we've got our super standard little kick snare drum beat. This is that relationship of kick on one and snare on two is sort of the standard for how people are used to hearing drum rhythm patterns in regular American, whatever, Western culture, pop music. So everything that you're going to do that's more interesting than that is going to be interesting because it is a variation on that pattern. So having a really solid grounding in kick on one and snare on two, and just repeat that for beat 3 and 4 and for the rest of everything, is going to be the foundation for your creativity. That's the cultural context that you're making music in. Make sure that you've got kick and snare going there, and then know that however you modify that is going to, that's where your creativity is going to come in, is you're going to mess up that formula, but it's definitely that formula is the foundation for everything else you're going to do. All right. So we've double checked to make sure everything plays correctly. We are going to go up to a project tab. It's already saved because it's auto saving. Now we are going to publish this. Okay, publish your track. It's called assignment 2. We're allowing others to remix. Hit publish. Now that this is done, we can come back over to our profile, and there was my test run. If I reload this page, here is my assignment 2 available. Again, to turn this in, you're going to go to the URL up here and paste this link into the Google Classroom assignment, so that I can come to this page. I can see that you have a track called assignment 2, and that's how I will look at it and evaluate your work. All right, guys, that's it for lesson number 2. Go ahead and hopefully you followed along and actually made that as we went. But go ahead and turn that in, or finish it and then turn it in, and I'll see you for lesson 3.